Hello and welcome. My name is Victoria, and I'm here with 7-Star, non-duality teacher and founder of the Center for Self-Compassion. Hi, 7-Star.
Hi.
Today, the topic I'd like to ask you about is love your conflicts. Those are two words that aren't usually in the same phrase. So can you talk about this? This is fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. When I typed that, I had you in mind actually, so that works out. Absolutely. Yeah. So I originally taught this workshop when I was involved in a committee for coming up with a conflict resolution policy for this group that I was involved in. And over that process, I started thinking to myself, I don't really know if conflict resolution is the term that I would even want to use, because not all conflicts can be resolved or need to be resolved. Sometimes there's just conflict, and conflict just means that maybe you have an opinion and the other person has a different opinion, and that's it. So, okay, no problem, right? And for some reason, people tend to think of conflict as having all these negative emotions or scary responses from other people, and then they try to avoid it, or they obsess about it, or they build up resentment, and then the resentment comes out later in passive aggressive behavior, and this whole drama gets built around the conflict, when the conflict is really just two things that are seemingly opposing each other, which is not really a problem in itself. And the whole process of coming to that perspective, like there's no right or wrong, can itself just be a heart opening process. So you can approach conflict like, oh, yay, there's conflict. This is going to be so interesting. And I'm going to learn how to be open to whatever is arising here and now from that person and from this person here, or from this situation. And I'm just going to learn to open. And there's nothing to be afraid of. And wouldn't it be wonderful if you approach life like that most of the time, right? So conflict is something that you can use to build those skills and to kind of shift the state of your being to one of openness and welcoming in whatever is arising. So that's why I say love your conflicts, because love, it just means opening your heart to whatever is arising, right? It doesn't mean you like it. So this is another big mistake that people make. And it's not their fault, really. It's the way we use the words love and like in this culture. We use the word love to mean when we really, really like something, right? Like, I love my new teacher. I love my car. Even when we say love about other people, it often just means that we really, really like them. So there's all these things about that person that when we're with them, we're experiencing these pleasurable emotions. And we call that love, but that's not really love. That's actually like. So love is when you're just open and welcoming to whatever is here, even if you don't like it. So conflict, you can love conflict because you can open to it, to understand that, oh, I have these thoughts, this other person has these other thoughts. There's no right or wrong. We're just here to love each other. So you can use it to come to that state of being. So that's why I say love your conflicts. So next time you have a conflict, you can, oh, okay, right? It is, and the resolution even, it doesn't have to be the end goal, because it doesn't necessarily even have to be resolved. Maybe you just express how you feel and the other person expresses how they feel, and you just hold space for each other. That's all. There doesn't have to be agreement. I mean, anyway, no one is right ever, because you can only have your perspective that you're having in your brain, which is going to be totally wrong. And so is the other person's. So why argue? So So that's what I mean by love your conflicts. You can be excited about them even.
Wow, there is so much in what you just said. Just a whole different perspective on the word love and the word conflict and the word resolution, actually. And then you said, so this is a question. I know that you're a non-duality teacher, and you said there's no right or wrong. And is that, did you say that because that is a non-duality perspective?
Well, it is a non-duality perspective, but that is not the reason why I said it.
Mm.
So I have a certain experience of life, and I had a certain realization about the kind of the truth of existence before I even heard the word non-duality. And then over time, I learned about non-duality and realized that it fit with the experience that I had already had. And actually, this concept of there's no right or wrong, it exists in other spiritual systems and religions as well. Like, for example, in Buddhism, one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a well-known Buddhist teacher in the West, often says is all perspectives are wrong. And letting go of dualistic thinking. So so for example, if I look at this glass, I'll have a whole bunch of things going on in my brain. Like, first of all, my brain's going to tell me this is a glass. This is a thing called a glass, and it has a purpose. And the purpose is you put liquid inside, and then you go like this, and you drink the liquid. That's what this is for. But all of that information came from me. It's not in the glass. The glass doesn't know it's a glass. And if a creature came here from another planet, they might not know what this is. The concept of glass, my understanding of glass is my understanding of that in my mind, right? It's not actually in the thing. There's no such thing actually as glass, drinking glass. That's just something that I learned from other people. Like when you're a baby, you don't know what that is. You have to learn it, right? So I understand that it seems so automatic now that we look at things and we're like, oh, this is hair and these are earrings and this is a table and this is a glass, and we accepted, we've all agreed on what these things are and what they're for in order to live in our society and get things accomplished. But we forgot that those are all made up concepts. They're not, there's nothing inherently correct about saying that this is a drinking glass, right? So if an alien comes from another planet and they're like, oh, I know what this is. It's for, whatever. I don't know what they would do with it. And then I'd say, no, you put water and you go like this. They're like, what? It's not in the thing. That's just my perspective. And everything that you think, that's just your perspective. It may not seem like it because a lot of things we do agree on and reinforce for each other. Like if I tell you this is a drinking glass, you go, oh, yeah, it is. Like as though that's the truth, but it's not the truth. We just have a shared, agreed upon perspective on this object, right? So anything that you think in your head, that's just your brain. That's just your neurons firing off and creating this make-believe imaginary idea about everything, truly. Because right now, everything that's going on in the universe is like one big giant unfolding, one big ocean of unfolding. And there's so many bazillions and bazillions of factors that are creating each little thing in each moment that there's no way we can have access to that information. So we really cannot possibly know what is really going on or what anything really means. We just do our best to make up what we think makes sense to us based on our culture and our growing up experience and what we see on TV and what we read. That's really all we're doing. It's not correct. So there's no right and wrong. Even if there's something that seems like it's so wrong, like someone getting hurt really bad or someone getting victimized, there's nothing wrong with wanting to intervene on that, that's fine. But you can still understand that you don't really know if that's the right thing to do,
Mm.
right? Because you don't know that person's journey through life and what they need to experience. You really don't know. And I understand that might not sound like something that it's not very popular. I understand that, but all I'm doing is just telling the truth. Whatever you think about any situation, that's just what you think. So this is a key in when you have conflicts, because so if my husband doesn't clean out my car, for example, and I feel disrespected and I feel upset, that is like a whole cascade of things happening in my brain that are just happening in my brain. It's not the truth of the situation, and I'm not right. So I can tell my husband, I'm having this thing going on in my mind. What's happening is I saw that the car was dirty, and then I told myself, or I made up about that you leaving the car dirty is disrespectful to me. It's not inherently disrespectful, just like this is not a glass. That's my interpretation. So I'm just letting you know, to me, I interpreted that as disrespectful. It's my responsibility, that interpretation. And then when I interpreted that as disrespectful, I felt mad and I felt resentful. So I own all of that. That's all me. But I would prefer it if next time you borrow my car, if you'd vacuum it out, that would be awesome. Do you mind? See, instead of you made my car dirty and you made me angry and you disrespected me and this is disrespectful. Because it's not in the thing. There's no disrespect. Disrespect doesn't exist. It's an idea that I have, that we all have. And you know that because something can happen and one person thinks it's disrespectful and another person doesn't. Right? So you know it's not in a thing. So that's what I mean. It's just my perspective. It's wrong because it can't be correct. It's just what I made up about it. However, that's my perspective. So there's truth in the sense that the truth is that's my perspective. It's not correct. It's just mine. Right? So when you're relating to someone, you can do this. Right? And that way now you're sharing, you're having intimacy. Does that
Yes.
answer your question?
Well, there's a beautiful Rumi quote that you may be aware of. It goes something like, beyond the beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there. Is
Yeah.
that what you're kind of pointing to? The idea of going beyond those notions that this is right and this is wrong. And
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word beyond for me personally. And of course, Rumi isn't here and I can't ask him what he meant by that. But my interpretation, my perspective on that is that, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And I wouldn't even say beyond, because beyond almost makes it seem like there is a right and wrong. We're just going to go beyond it. I'm just saying there is no right and wrong. So when there's no right and wrong, now we can actually meet. See, because now I'm just sharing myself with you and you're sharing yourself with me. Because there's not going to be any block of like, you're wrong or you're wrong. Just forget that. I'm sharing. Even if my sharing is like, I actually thought to myself, you are such a jerk. Still, I'm saying that was my thing that I made up. And if you practice this, then as the other person, you go, oh, I see you made that up. It has no bearing on me. I'm not a jerk. I just didn't vacuum the car or whatever the thing is. Right. So through talking about or quote unquote conflict in that way, where there is no right or wrong, it's just sharing. See, then you can love your conflict because you're like, oh, I have this opportunity now to practice, to love, to have intimacy.
so to have intimacy, and so I wanted to ask you, as you are doing, is to use apply that to this experience that you could have with Michael. So when you say intimacy, that word has all kinds of meanings too. So can you say more about so say that happens.
Mhm.
Michael brings your car home and it's not the way you wanted it to be. And
Mhm.
you become aware of this irritation because of the thoughts that you're just saying. And it sounds like so is your experience that when you notice that you're having irritation, that's the signal to you to love it, oh, I can use this as an opportunity? Like, how does that work for you? And how does it, and the intimacy that you're talking about, what do you mean?
Sure. Okay. So you are, first of all, you have intimacy with yourself, and that is the awareness that you were talking about.
Mm,
I, as awareness, become aware that there is irritation here. So
mm,
now I'm already loving because I'm loving myself. I'm loving the self that is here, that is irritated. So I'm the love that sees the irritation and goes, oh, okay, I see you have some irritation, right? And then I can look, okay, what happened? What was my interpretation? So whenever you have emotion, emotion is the end. Emotion is the last part, the result of a whole bunch of other stuff that happened already in your brain. People think that it's event feeling, right? This happened, I feel mad. But there's all these little things in between. This happened, I made up a whole bunch of stuff about like, why did that happen? What does this mean? Does this mean that I'm a good person or a bad person? All kinds of stuff. Then we have feelings. So when I recognize that I have a feeling, I need to go back. Or I can go back because Michael and I have been together for a long time. We do this a lot. I can go back with him. So I can say to him, hang on, I'm feeling really, really annoyed right now. So give me just a second. I wonder, I'm not sure what just happened. And then I'll kind of like, oh, okay, you know what I think it is? It's because this, and then I'll go through the whole thing. And so I can do it even if we're already talking. Right. And the intimacy is that the self that's arising as me, meaning my thoughts, right? So what I thought about that situation, how I interpreted it, and then the feelings that rose up because of how I thought about it, that is myself of the moment that I'm sharing.
mm,
And sharing is intimacy.
mm,
That's all. Uh, Most people in their conversations, they are not sharing, right? Because they're so focused on the content of the conversation instead of just witnessing the other person sharing themselves, right? So a person's like talking to you about a problem that they're having at work or whatever, and you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, their boss is this and that, instead of just being like, oh, this person is opening and sharing with me what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and just saying, wow, okay, you're thinking this, you're feeling this. Okay, I'm here with you. That's all. Now you're having intimacy. But most people aren't even really looking. They're just thinking about the content of what the person said and what they think about that content.
oh,
Right. So they're thinking like, do I agree with this? Do I disagree with this? Do I like this? I don't like this. Am I bored? Do I want to go? Instead of just like, what doesn't matter what the person's saying. Just like if you had a small child, right? You have a toddler. Now, toddlers don't always talk about the most interesting things, right? Like there's these little kids that live down the street and they're awesome. I love them. And whenever I see them, they're always showing me like their whatever things they have, which is like what kids do. Look at my shirt. Look what I made. Look what I did. Hey, did you see there's ducks? Did you know there's a green one? There's a red one. I go, hey, I have this frog. And they just on and on, right? Because they're just sharing. Whoever they are in that moment, the thoughts and feelings they're having, they're just letting them come out, express, because they haven't gone through the part of suppressing all of that, right? And like, oh, it's not okay to say this, it's not okay to say that. They're still in that open, loving awareness stage. So I'm there and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Do I really care? Like what kind of dinosaur that is, or how many teeth? Like, not really. But that would be so crazy, right? That would seem like so rude if you were to see an adult being like, dinosaurs are stupid, okay? I don't care about dinosaur. That's so rude, right? But we do that with adults. The content of what you're saying is totally boring to me and I don't care. So I'm just going to look around or look at my phone, or I don't like what you're saying, so I'm going to argue with you instead of just, oh yeah, tell me more. That's what you think? That's how you feel? Oh, okay, okay. Right? So you're just being loving. But most people don't do that. Most people have no idea what love really is, honestly. It's all about like and dislike.
Huh.
It's not about intimacy and sharing. This is why, like, when you go to, I don't know if you've ever went to 12-step, and I personally haven't either, but I know that what they do there is they talk and they share, right? Here's what I'm going through, blah, blah, blah. And when they're done, everyone goes, thank you. That's all. Thank you for being here. Whatever you said, however, whatever crazy ass story you had this week, John, you showed up. Good for you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for sharing, right? Because people turn to addiction when they don't know how to express their feelings, and they don't have intimacy. They don't know how to have intimacy with other people, right? Intimacy makes us high, like chemically, right? We get oxytocin from it. So when people aren't getting that, what do? They go for the dopamine high. They go to drugs, they go to shopping, they go to TV, whatever. It's the next best thing to the high that we get from oxytocin, which is from being with other people and really being with them.
That's beautiful. So I'm sure you've heard the phrase that intimacy is into me see. So by sharing thoughts and feelings, the high that you talk about, though, I'm wondering, it seems like it require, and I know we're getting away a little bit from this, the topic, but the intimacy and welcoming differences as an opportunity to get to see more into the person, or to see more of what's going on in the person, the thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed, I'm wondering about the response. So like you talked about what a quote unquote rude response would be, a response that did say something about what was going on in the other person. So I'm thinking you're nuts to tell me about dinosaurs. And that's not going to create a high. So I guess maybe going back to you and Michael, so you are saying all these things that are going on in you
Mm-hmm.
about your experience of seeing the car. What about his response? Like what would help you feel intimacy, or what would create that high of intimacy with him? Does it require him? Yeah. Does he just
Yeah.
stand there? Does it make intimacy?
Okay. So now we're getting a little more into the non-duality part.
Mm,
Is that so when people come to spirituality, any kind of spirituality, sometimes they go right into it and they realize, the truth, and sometimes there's these little kind of step downs. So people, when they think about things like connection and intimacy, they think about me and another person.
mm,
But if we're really talking about the truth, there is no separation between you and anything. There's only one. So you are actually intimacy itself with everything that exists. because you cannot, it's just like an ocean. You can't say like, well, I'm this cubic inch of water, and that other cubic inch of water over there doesn't touch me. It's separate. It's just one ocean, you know? And so you can't, so there is no special intimacy with humans. So I understand that that might be a step more down here, but I'm just saying the truth. I'm just putting it out there. So the intimacy itself doesn't require another person. It doesn't require the other person. It doesn't require another person at all. And it doesn't require the other person to do anything specific. So I used to teach a workshop a long time ago on, I think it was something called like the higher self or something like that. So over time, how I talk about these concepts has evolved. And I used to use the term higher self, which I don't use anymore. But anyway, I was saying, so what is the higher self? And, you know, when you're being your higher self, how does that feel, and something. And people said, well, when I'm being my higher self, or when if I'm talking to someone and they're their higher self, it means that they're listening to me, and they're, you know, I just feel like I can totally express myself. I can be myself. I can just relax and like look like, how am I really feeling, and all this stuff. And I just feel really great. I feel safe. And then I said, well, you don't need the other person to do anything really for you to feel that way, because you have the intimacy with yourself. And then by extension, the other person happens to be standing there. So then they're included in that intimacy because they're there. But even if you know, Michael's my husband, but I have a regular job, just like a lot of people. And I work with all different kinds of people. And most people I work with would think that this is totally nuts, and that they would have no idea what I'm talking about. But I work with them all the time, right? And they don't know how to have intimacy, but that doesn't matter. I am already that intimacy. So when they're talking to me, I'm loving. If I'm talking and they're not listening to what I'm saying, I'm loving. So whatever is arising here as me, I'm loving it. Whatever is arising there as them, I'm loving it. It doesn't matter if they are loving or they have any idea what this even is about at all. It really doesn't matter. So I'll just say that. Specifically, if you want to know about Michael, since we do this a lot, he would just say like, oh, I get it. Like basically repeat and make sure he understands what I said. You know, basic, what's that called? Listening, active listening 101. Right? Okay, so you said oh, okay, the car was dirty. And when you saw that, then you felt irritated. And that's because you thought maybe I didn't care and I didn't respect your car. And then you might say, like, that's totally not the case. I do care. I just forgot. I was really busy. Or, you know, I just didn't even notice that. You know, people are all different. And again, like you just have no idea really when you're interpreting something, what's correct. You know, that person, like, you know, I just got home from the emergency room and I got an email from a friend of mine who was like panicking that I didn't send her this email that I said that I would this morning. You know, and she's like, I just, you know, she was irritated. Like, I really thought I was going to get that email from you this morning. And I just don't understand. Like, what are we doing tomorrow or something? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I just got home from the hospital. She's like, oh, sorry, you know, but, you know, she just had a wrong perception, right? So you just really never know what's really going on with other people. You just never can have the correct perception. So you just say, you know, here's my interpretation. Is that even close? And the other person can say, no, not even, no, like not even close. I never even thought about that. And then there's no conflict. But so that's like what he would say. But the intimacy for me doesn't depend on what the other person does or does not do.
Okay. So the end is because you're having intimacy with yourself.
Mhm.
And So no matter what his response was, that would still be an experience, an elevating experience for you, because you were seeing what was going on with you with compassion. As
Yeah.
so, regardless of whether he yelled or didn't, just turned and walked away or any, so it's not really, yeah, it's hard to talk about this as we're all oneness.
Uh-huh.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, does it help you and Michael feel closer to each other? But it sounds like that's not part of the experience, or it could be. I don't know. I'm getting lost here.
No, that's okay. I would say, so I would say no, it doesn't help us like feel closer, because there really is no separation. So because most people are operating in this separation paradigm where there's me over here and there's you over here. And first of all, so there's kind of two parts of this. So there's this separation, and also that the two people have this kind of ongoing fixed entity that they exist as. So like seven star is like this, there's like this little seven star, and she has all these little qualities that, my husband likes or doesn't like about quote unquote me. And then there's this little Michael, and I have this idea of Michael and what he's like. And if I like that or dislike that, like there's these two little people that exist like on a day-to-day basis as some kind of fixed entity. So because I don't have that, there's no closer and farther. The intimacy, the whole relationship that I have with him is now. It's who are you now? And who are you now? Oh, who are you now? Who are you now? Right? Oh, good morning. Who are you right now? It's not, I have no like these expectations carried from day to day. Like, well, but remember when we first got together, you were like XYZ and now you're not. I don't care. Of course not. And I don't even remember that. It's just about now. Intimacy is right now in this moment. Who are you? What is arising right here and now as you? And what is arising right here and now as me? That's all. So there can't really be closer and farther, because that suggests like an ongoing continuum of a relationship. Like today, we're closer than we were yesterday. But when you're just in the now, that doesn't really make sense.
Hmm.
Right? So you're just like, right now, we're having this moment of intimacy. I am, and so is he at the same time. But most people don't think that way. They think that they're separate, and they think that knowing more little things that they think are facts about that person makes them closer together. But the truth is, you cannot possibly be closer to anything or anyone than you already are. Right? Because there's all one. There's only one. So because you have this mistaken concept in the first place, then you have these concept of close or far, like that. So if I have someone that I don't spend a lot of time with, the way I think of it, so I have people that I think of as like, well, I don't really know them. I don't spend a lot of time with them. It's more like I don't have, that person doesn't do the intimacy. Like they're not doing that. When I'm with them, they're not really here with me. They're not sharing, they're not really sharing. They're not really open to what I'm sharing. And when I see that, then I don't make a big effort to spend time with them again. Because I don't, what for? But that doesn't mean that I feel like if they tell me stuff about themselves that I'm like getting to know them, because that's just only now, right? Whatever they're telling me is what they think now, how they feel now. It's not like I'm accumulating all these facts and putting together this puzzle of like, well, this is who they are, right?
Hmm.
Because next time I see them, or 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 5 seconds later, they'll be having different thoughts and different feelings. So it's like you don't get to the bottom of it. don't get to like, oh, now I know you, which sometimes happens. And then people they think they're getting bored because their partner's not entertaining them anymore or whatever. But it's not about that. There's always something happening. Just like if you look at a flower, right? There's the stem, then the bud, the opening, the dying, the drying out, the petals drop, the bud drops, the hibernation, the stem again, the bud again. It's always still going and going. There's always something going on because it's just like a living river of phenomena. Every person is. There's never a point where you're like, oh, I know them. They're this. It'd be like a river's rushing by and you're like, this is it. This is the river. Hold on. There's never a point where there's a fixed thing of water where you can say, that's it. That's the river. So you're just being with, that's intimacy. There's no like getting to know.
Wow. So the people, so let me see if so the people that you would not, what I thought I heard was that the people you would not continue to seek to spend time with, say, are people who are not being intimate with themselves, or not kind of freely expressing what their in the moment thoughts and feelings are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, for me, I'm always looking at everything and experiencing intimacy with everything. So that's something that I enjoy doing. And so I enjoy, like, if I go kayaking, I just want to look at, the trees, the birds, whatever. I enjoy that. And so for me, I enjoy kayaking with someone who also enjoys that. That's just enjoyment. But if I went kayaking with someone who's not like that, I wouldn't have a bad time, or I wouldn't be annoyed or like upset, like, oh, they're not like that, I don't like them. It'd just be like, oh, okay, this is who they are. I understand. Like in this moment, right now, that's not where they're at. And so then I think, okay, well, I'm probably not going to invite them kayaking again and again and again and again. That's all. Or maybe I would, because I'd still want to go. But I'll just be honest too, that it isn't really a thing, because people like that, they don't want to go kayaking with me. So it all works out, because people are all in different places. So there are people who are constantly just very neurotic and constantly seeking lovability and trying to control things, and a lot of people are there. And if they are, they're not interested in anything that I have to say, really, because that's not my game. So it just kind of works out. It's not like I'm like, oh, well, I would call that person, but I'm not going to. It just doesn't really, we just don't end up together, which is whatever. It's all just part of the flow. So those people are not attracted to someone like me. They're not putting me on their calendar.
Well, okay. So say, well, okay, I'm just gonna ask, so conflict. I'm curious about your perspective of in the polarization that we've been experiencing in our country,
Mhm.
between, the more conservative Republican view and the more liberal Democrat view. So love the conflict. So if you have, say, a coworker
Mhm.
that has a different point of view,
Mhm.
and they had heard your talk about this, and they wanted to approach it with love, the way, can you redefine that word the way you meant it to mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. So the the biggest thing is the difference between love and like.
Mm,
So, right. So you can be open and loving and accepting
mm,
to everything. I mean, really, you are open to it anyway, because again, like it's all one. So this is all just in your mind and what you're telling yourself. So you can tell yourself, I'm against that, I hate it, blah, blah, blah. But really, you are it. So that's just the truth. So I'll just say that. But anyway, so you can not like things, but you still can love them. I mean, you can be totally open. So I can try a new food, right? And I'm totally open. I'm curious, like, what's this going to be like? And then I put it in my mouth and I'm totally open to the experience of how horrible it tastes to me. And I'm 100% with that experience and meeting it and going, okay, I don't like this at all. This is the worst thing I've ever tasted. Like, like one time I ate sea urchin sushi. No, don't even bother. Let me tell you. Oh, and it scarred me. Okay. So, but like that, and again, like part of being totally open is that it actually makes you more responsive because you're so aware of whether or not something is something that you enjoy or not, or that you like or don't like. So I was very, very, very aware, like, I don't like this and I'll never eat this again. Right. But I still was right there with the experience and fully there. I wasn't trying to like, oh, like pretend like it's okay and it's fine. Like, it's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Like, no, I was just like, this is, oh my God, the worst. Oh my God. And like for a while we left the restaurant. I was still like, oh, so, you let it affect you.
mm.
You never close your heart or take away your attention. But, you know, you don't have to go back for more. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then if you're going to engage with someone who you think has a very different political perspective,
Hmm.
you're approaching with an openness to hear what they have to say and to not and to ex- accept it. Is that right? Or
So, yeah. Okay. So I hear where you're coming from. I get questions like this a lot where people are like, well, how can I be totally accepting, but also have boundaries? Like, what if someone's really like mean or they do, I mean, or they, if someone does something horrible, like abusive, So you, you still can determine your boundaries because you are open, loving awareness. And in the open, loving awareness, there's the other person and all of their thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs. And there's you. So you don't ignore your thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs in favor of the other person. You don't have to, there's no like subjugation. This doesn't mean that you're nice, even. This is the other thing. People are like, oh, loving kindness. You have to smile, be nice, and like, okay, yes, and thank you. No, you don't have to do that. No, no, no. You're just going to be open, right? So if someone says to me, oh, I want to talk about blah, 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 something that to me personally, I don't want to talk about that, or uh, what they're saying is something that right now I don't want to be exposed to. That's fine. I'm here with me too. And me in this moment is saying, I don't want to talk about this right now. And I don't have to be mean about it. And I don't have to say you're wrong or something wrong with them. Again, it's my preference. Just like when I said to Michael, I'd really prefer if you next time, if you could vacuum the car. I can just say, right now, I really don't want to have this conversation. But thank you, though. I appreciate it. Or you know what? I have a different perspective. You can say it in a nice and respectful way, but you don't have to let yourself, suffer through something. It's not about being nice. I know I say this a lot. I know people think like, oh, I have to be nice. And I have to be like, that's okay. Yes. Oh, that's great. Wow. Oh, you don't like Black people? Wow. No, no, no. You can say, yeah, well, that's your perspective. And I disagree. I have my own perspective, right? Just like with the car. My husband was like, oh, I didn't even think about the vacuuming. That's his perspective. Or I was too tired. And my perspective is, I really would like it to be clean. Could you please clean it? So again, this is not a right or wrong. You're still free to express yourself. You say your perspective. So I can still say, oh, if you're going to say these racist comments, that's your right in life to say racist comments. I don't want to be here while you're saying them, so I'm leaving. I'm going to go now. That's all. Not like you're wrong and you should be in jail and I can't believe it. And then, you start calling them names or whatever. I don't know what people do, but that's not necessarily. You love yourself too, because yourself and their self are both there. So you're just totally open and boundaries. If you want, you can go. Right.
So if with Michael, if he just consistently, even though he knows you want him to leave the car more clean, if he consistently doesn't do it, then you check in with yourself about whether you want to continue. You don't make him wrong, but you just see how you are about honoring your own preferences, whether being with him.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So you always are the one looking at what do I want? What do I want to do? With completely accepting where the other person is at. Right. So I have a whole workshop that's called Stop Waiting for Other People to Change. Right. And that's what we talk about. So if you ask someone, so maybe I have a racist coworker or a coworker, I won't even say it that way because that's very kind of dualistic thinking, but say they tend to, right? People have tendencies, right? People tend to do similar behaviors over and over. So they tend to make comments that I perceive as racist. Okay. So, and I first try and say to them, when you said such and such, I perceive that as racist. And I don't want to hear you saying things like that anymore. So I want to ask you, when I'm around, could you not say things like that? And then they can either say yes or no. Yes, you know what? I will try for you, for whatever reason or whatever they think. I think those comments are funny. That's my perspective. Just like Michael's like, I don't care if the car is dirty. But for you, yes, I'll vacuum the car. I'll stop saying those things. Or they can say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or they can just continue doing it, which is another way of saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. So what most people will do is, okay, well, what is another strategy I can try to make the person do what I want? Right. Well, maybe I can say it in a different way. What if I yell at them? Maybe I'll be passive aggressive. Maybe I just won't finish their report on Friday. I'll finish everyone else's report on, or whatever their thing is, or they'll report them to HR and blah, blah, blah. So, and you can report someone to HR. That's fine. If people are violating the rules of the shared space, there's no problem with that. We have rules and laws in different spaces in our society, and we have consequences for breaking those rules. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means that you violated the law or you violated the rules. So then they keep doing it. So, okay, they're not going to change that. Now, knowing that they're never, ever going to change that, right? This is them right now. Now, what do I want to do? Okay, well, I'm not going to work there anymore. I'm not going to be in the same room with them. I'm not going to partner with them or whatever. I'm going to make my boundaries then. I'm not going to loan my car to my husband ever again. That's it, And then, yes, up to and including I'm done and I'm not going to see that person anymore because they've clearly said to me, I don't care. It's either I don't care or I'm not able to, right? I won't do what you want, or I can't do what you want. And I think a lot of times people mistake can't for won't, right? I mean, so going with the cleaning example, for whatever reason, because of how I grew up, I clean things. Like I notice if I look on the floor and there's something on the floor, like a little piece of paper, I would bend down and pick it up and put it in the trash, right? If I come in from work, I hang up my coat on the coat rack thing. I always put my keys in the same place, always put my bag in the same place, right? My son and my husband, they come home, they put their coat, I don't know, wherever, keys, wherever, bag, I don't know. And then, later on, oh, where's my bag? Where's my socks? Where's my this? Where's my that? And for a long time, I was like, why don't you just do different? I was like, stop doing that. That's annoying. Because then I'm like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I don't know where your stuff is. Right. But then I realized they can't. Everyone's brain is different. Right. In school, I did horrible in statistics class. I just didn't understand. I'm not a dumb person, but I just didn't get it. My brain doesn't work that way. But I'm really good with languages. That was easy for me. Some people aren't. Just everyone's different. Some people look at the floor and they don't see trash on the floor. They don't look and see it and not care. They don't see it. Like they don't notice that the bathroom sink is dirty or that the mirror is dirty. Like they don't notice. But I know you're laughing, but I use this example because a lot of people have these kind of experiences, especially with partners or roommates. But truly, everyone's brain is different. And they may have never even thought of it. To me, whenever I use the bathroom, I wipe the sink off and I wipe the faucet off, right? When I brush my teeth and I wipe the mirror. But other people don't do that. They just don't think of it. And they look in the mirror, brush their teeth, and they leave, and they don't even notice. They don't see like this stuff, right? So that's just how they are. So they can't.
Yeah.
So either they can't or they can, but they won't. And either way, the ball's in your court. Okay, they can't, or they won't. Now, knowing that, meeting that, loving that, accepting that, what do I want to do? Not how am I making them do different, but what am I going to do? Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So love and boundaries
Sounds like a great workshop.
together at last.
Yeah. Well, this has been extremely enlightening, and I really appreciate everything that you shared. It just opens up so many different ways of looking at things.
Yes.
So thank you very much, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Yeah.
Thank you.